final question from me, but it always struck me that what was kind of depressing, and I think a genuine catch-22 was that the part of Bernie's campaign that was about mobilizing new people could only happen in 2024 when he's running for re-election and people's material lives have already improved. That starting to cross some of the bridge that you're talking about is going to take place after results have actually occurred. And I mean, I do think we have to be looking, to the extent it's practical, particularly at how to revive or in any way support organized labor. But, you know, I agree. That was why Bernie was also so important, was that Bernie was the easiest, I mean, not easy, obviously, but it was the most direct path to getting some positivity back in politics and people's lives in a real, actual way in terms of making more money and living better lives. I want to just get your thoughts briefly on this Biden article that we were talking about off air. It's this piece that came out in 2019 by Ryan Lizza in Politico. And basically, I'll just read the title here: Why Biden's Retro Inner Circle is Succeeding So Far. And essentially, this piece it's pretty comical on some level. The comedy part of me really enjoys like all of this drama of like Bernie and the revolution, or like, obviously, of course, it's going to be one of these Gen X candidates, and then like Biden just coming out with like a group of like Irish guys who've been advising him since the 80s, just being like, I'll tell you what, Jack, Joe Biden tweets too much. Boom, wins. And but I think there's a lot of truth to it, both in terms of what you were talking about earlier, in terms of just that hunt for normalcy, which is another thing that I think we discount at our own peril. But it also struck me that when you read this piece, that this third wave formula politically that goes back to the 80s of appealing to white suburbanites by moving to the extreme right and race baiting, which is what Clinton and Biden, folks like that, did. And then also to certain like blue collar whites on that type of kind of cultural political grounds. But then, being quite cozy with corporate America, that basically that still works. And the woke discursive stuff is great because it's for that model, because it's like, okay, like the cultural signifiers in the 90s were, be an asshole to Jesse Jackson. Now it's pretend we care about like, various kind of woke signaling, but the same formula of like, there's a couple of different baskets of whites that will appeal to culturally, and then we'll sop up campaign donations by being just as friendly to corporate America. I think policy-wise it's harder than it used to be, but politically it seems like still works for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, look, I have to read this excerpt from the piece because I thought that it was definitely enlightening, and we're seeing it play out in real time. And I want to get your thoughts on it, Matt. So Lizza writes, Biden's advisors came up in politics during the Reagan Revolution, when Democrats were often taught that they needed to be ideologically cautious to win. Like Biden, they are contemptuous of the revolutionary left. Like Biden, they like to think of the Democratic coalition as still anchored in the white working class. And I thought that was such an interesting part of the piece, because what really got Biden to the finish line in the primaries was the black vote, and in the meantime, behind the scenes, his advisors are like, yeah, the woke stuff, that's like the window dressing stuff that we're going to do. But really, the power is in, the white workers, and that's what we're going to focus on. It's just so interesting to see like that disconnect, what Biden is being represented as in the media and what he's being advised to focus on behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. That article, I actually didn't read that article when it came out at the time. I went back and read it kind of after Biden was the presumptive nominee. And I was sort of surprised. I don't think it got a lot of, I think it came out, it's funny, I think, but it came out in December of 19, Michael?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? I mean, I think that was in the midst of Biden's like biggest hiccups, where no one was talking about him. People were talking about Warren or Bernie or Buttigieg or whatever. And I don't think people really were taking the kind of outlines of a Biden administration or a Biden general election campaign seriously, which in some ways made it the kind of much more honest and sort of powerful kind of look at this group to come back and read it after what happened, after how we saw the campaign played out. Yeah, because there are all sorts of these contradictions. I mean, what some people call the great awakening of white liberal voters, especially white liberal primary voters, in their attitudes about, you could call it race talk to some extent. Identity politics. To some extent, it shows up in policy on favorability towards certain kind of very moderate measures intending to kind of cut down on, police violence or something like that. There are some concrete things, but primarily it's sort of attitudinal in terms of what's happened basically since the Obama era. And it is quite dramatic. And I think it is a real thing in terms of how the median white educated Democratic voter wants to sort of be approached in terms of wants to cast a ballot for a Democrat being like, we are the good guys who are not racist. And that's important in a way that it wasn't important for Democratic voters in the 80s and 90s. And I think these guys are probably aware of that.
Can we make that even more explicit, Matt? That these people were the same people in the 90s who were saying, I want to vote for a Democrat, but I'm concerned that they might not use the police to terrorize enough inner city communities because I'm freaked out about crime. And now in today's world, I have read part of the Ta-Nehisi Coates essay, and I would like to be talked to like that. And actually the policy agenda is, I mean, I'll agree with you. There's some progress in terms of criminal justice reform, but I mean, there's bizarrely some progress in criminal justice reform in the Republican Party. So policy-wise, very little departure.
Yeah, I mean, no, I agree, and it's fascinating how complete and yet sort of meaningless that shift has seemed to be so far. And yeah, it was striking at every point during the campaign when it looked like, SS Biden was running into some kind of iceberg, whether it was early on, Me Too stuff, whether it was various kinds of, under fire from candidates of color, whether it was Kamala's, that was busing. Me moment, right? Mm-hmm. On busing, whether it was, and then all the way through, none of it. We kept, people kept predicting, this ship's going down, and it never ever did. So. Not only did it not go down with black voters, which is something we could talk about probably better for another show, but it didn't go down even with the kind of white educated voters who supposedly were twisted in the wind, have been changed by this discourse, who in fact still preferred the problematic candidate over not only Sanders but Warren too in most kind of educated suburban enclaves. Biden blew Warren out of the water in Massachusetts, and he won. Yeah. He won all of those. With the exception of one or two very specific neighborhoods, he won all of those collar counties in Boston. Those rich counties that are probably extremely attitudinally woke. So yeah, what is the difference in the end? I mean, for me, my big takeaway from that article was it's really wrong to expect. It's really profoundly wrong. We knew this anyway, but that underlined it. To expect in any meaningful policy concessions from Biden moving to the left. I mean, you saw the other day he announced no new taxes on anyone making $400,000. That's Bill Clinton said no new taxes on anyone making $100,000. Right. That's the progress of the Democratic Party in the last 25 years. Is now we are the party of people who make 100. Now they are the party of people who make 100 to 400 grand. And that's troubling. I don't think that's going to change under this leadership.
Yeah. Matt Karp, thank you so much for taking the time to have this discussion with us. Everyone check out his book. He's the author of Vast Southern Empire, Slaveholders at the Helm of American Foreign Policy. Matt, I hope you come on and speak with us again in the future.
Yeah, I'm off to not tweet and to read Dante's Inferno. Feel better about myself. You know, that's my happy bedtime reading now.
That's very high level.
One canto, one circle of hell per evening. I recommend it to all your listeners out there. It's a way to feel better about yourself and the world every night before you go to bed.
You know what I like what Matt's doing there is he's showing us exactly how to reach out to the working class, broad-based American coalition by reading Dante's Inferno.
Divine comedy, baby. That's a secret. It's a secret elixir.
I love it. We all should read that, actually. I've definitely never read it. So
neither have I till now.
All right, that's awesome. All right, let's get on it. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, guys.